Welcome to Business, Government Relations Across Borders. In this presentation, I'll examine how businesses operate within government systems that differ across countries, industries, and political environments. We'll focus on the challenges created by changing regulations, shifting priorities, and different expectations around public and private sector relationships. The central idea is strategic adaptability. Businesses need to understand their environment, anticipate government concerns, and build effective relationships while managing risk. Together, we'll explore the key concepts and environments that shape these cross-border interactions. Every business operates within a political and regulatory environment shaped by its host government. This relationship is fundamental to survival, growth, and international competition. First, regulatory compliance matters because laws define what a company can and cannot do. Second, governments influence market access through entry requirements, tariffs, and trade rules. Finally, policy changes create operational risk. A shift in government priorities or regulations can disrupt supply chains, alter costs, or even overturn a business model almost overnight. Understanding this relationship is essential for making sound strategic decisions. This slide outlines the core challenges organizations face when operating across markets. Political risk can bring instability, regime changes, and shifting government priorities. Regulatory complexity adds another layer, especially when rules vary or contradict one another across jurisdictions. Corruption and ethics concerns include navigating bribery norms while complying with international anti-corruption laws. Trade policy introduces tariffs, sanctions, and changing agreements. Finally, cultural norms shape expectations around business and government relationships. These challenges rarely occur separately. They interact and can compound one another, making international decisions more complex. Political risk is the possibility that government actions, instability, or political events will harm a company's international operations. The central challenge is uncertainty. Firms may face major changes even when their plans and investments are sound. Three risks are especially important. First, expropriation, where a government nationalizes foreign-owned assets, particularly in natural resource industries. Second, policy reversals, often following elections, can change tax incentives, permits, or trade agreements. Finally, civil unrest, including protests or conflict, can interrupt operations and disrupt supply chains. Together, these risks make political conditions a critical part of international business decisions. Operating across borders means compliance is rarely a simple checklist. Companies must manage multiple regulatory systems at the same time, and those systems may conflict. Practices that meet U.S. requirements, for example, may not satisfy European data privacy standards, while operations in Southeast Asia may encounter unexpected labor mandates. The most important risk is regulatory arbitrage, when businesses take advantage of gaps between weaker and stricter regimes. That approach may appear efficient in the short term, but it can lead to serious reputational damage and legal consequences. Corruption is not a distant or isolated issue. It is a global business reality with direct strategic and legal consequences. The scale varies dramatically across countries, from environments with very low perceived corruption to markets where bribery can be part of everyday commerce. At the same time, laws such as the U.S. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and the U.K. Bribery Act can penalize companies for bribing foreign officials, even when local practices appear to tolerate it. That makes proactive training, clear anti-bribery policies, and a strong culture of compliance essential. Trade policy defines the rules for entering and competing in markets. Governments influence business competitiveness through tariffs and quotas, which can raise import costs and weaken price advantages. Economic sanctions can go further, restricting trade with entire countries or sectors. Trade agreements may create new opportunities by opening markets, but they can also impose new conditions or close access. For firms, the key is to adapt strategy, assess impact, and monitor changes. These policies can shift quickly, so businesses need to anticipate how government decisions will affect costs, supply chains, and market access. Government relationships are shaped by more than laws and formal policy. Cultural expectations determine what feels normal, respectful, and legitimate in a particular market. In relationship-first environments, including China, Japan, and much of Southeast Asia, trust and long-term cultivation with officials may come before business discussions. By contrast, the U.S. and Northern Europe generally emphasize formal lobbying, legal advocacy, and transparent engagement. In some economies, informal networks and intermediaries carry significant influence, but they can also create serious ethical risks for foreign firms. Recognizing these differences is essential to navigating government relations responsibly. Managing government relations effectively starts with a shift in mindset. Successful firms treat it as a core competency, meaning it belongs at the center of how the organization operates, rather than being handled as a back-office task. Proactive engagement consistently outperforms reactive crisis management. By engaging before issues become urgent, firms are better positioned to manage relationships thoughtfully and respond with greater control. The key takeaway is simple. Government relations should be ongoing and strategic, not something addressed only when a crisis demands attention. This snapshot shows how business strategy must adapt to each country's political and regulatory environment. In the United States, companies navigate complex lobbying and regulatory agencies through formal advocacy and legal compliance. China emphasizes centralized, relationship-driven government, making long-term guanxi and joint ventures important. Brazil presents bureaucratic and corruption risks, so local partners and compliance programs are essential. Germany's strict labor and environmental rules call for rigorous compliance and co-determination. The key lesson is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to government relations or market entry. The key message is proactive engagement. Understand each country's political environment, embed compliance into strategy, and adapt to local cultural contexts. Continuously monitor changing trade policies, build agile responses, and engage government stakeholders early. Together, these practices reduce risk, strengthen relationships, and create a more resilient international business strategy.